I started working with Handspring Puppet Company in the early 1990s, and we did 3 traditional stage performances with the puppet company before the first opera, Il Ritorno di Ulisse. But in all the puppet productions, music had become more and more important in it until it expanded into the production of Il Ritorno di Ulisse. Now, there's something about the focus of the singer, not on the audience, but on the puppet, that for me was interesting. An audience watches the performance by watching a singer who's visible, but the singer doesn't sing directly to the audience. The singer sings to the puppet, and the puppet takes the focus to the audience. And the circular vision of the manipulators, the puppet, and the singers is what intrigued me in working in this form. The thing about a puppet is that you know it's an artificial performance. You know it's a piece of wood being moved. You can see the manipulators operating the legs and the arms and the head, so you know you're not looking at a real person. But in spite of knowing that, nonetheless one gives the puppet, when it's well manipulated, a kind of agency. In the same way with the drawing or projection of a drawing, you know you're not looking at a real landscape, you're looking at a drawing of a landscape. So there's something of the anti-naturalism of the charcoal drawings and of the wooden puppets that for me had a connection. And that one of the tasks was to see, even though they are such clearly artificial, non-natural forms, can they still have an emotional impact? Ulysses production was done 25 years ago. And the form of it, a mixture of live performance and projection, has not really changed fundamentally for me. Obviously, the particular technologies, the kind of projectors, the kind of cameras, the systems for integrating them has become slightly more sophisticated. But essentially, it is the same. It always has to do whether, in the end, one finds through the medium a kind of an emotional insight to give to an audience. All the productions that I've done have used a mixture of live performance and projections, in which the projection is sometimes the scenery and sometimes it's the thoughts of the singers. It enables one to have a commentary on the opera while doing it. It struck me that in the opera, obviously, the position of the gods are very important, gods of fortune, of time, of love. And how does one translate ancient Greek gods into a contemporary setting? In the same way that in the ancient era, one would have assumed that fate in the form of storms, of lightning, were the dangers one had to contend with. Nowadays, one's taken those internally into the body. So the fear is not so much of being struck by lightning, that we can protect ourselves from, but of the lightning strike inside the body, the heart attack or the stroke. What are we still vulnerable to? And that's one of the questions that the opera asks, a mixture between the heroism of Ulisse and his vulnerability as a human being. And using projections was one way of being able to deal with this material, and putting it in a contemporary era in a hospital rather than only in ancient Greece made that possible. Here we are towards the end, we hope, of COVID. And it's been a huge challenge particularly for performing artists, for musicians, for dancers, for singers, because for so many months they were unable to practice their métier with a live audience in front of them. But there is something to be taken from it, and that is understanding that the fundamental material of artists, which has to do with uncertainty, with doubt, with uncertain endings, with allowing the work itself to show you the way forward, has come much more into sync with the rest of the world. And to understand that as artists, we are ahead of that understanding, that the natural processes of the studio are ahead of the lessons which people are learning of not knowing their future, of making peace with not knowing their future, of not knowing what will happen to them. So it's a very good time, it's been a very good time, in fact, for artists' work to be taken seriously and for artists to be working. It's a good time to be a young artist.